When 93-year-old Martha Grayson found a neon yellow eviction notice nailed to her ranch gate, she thought it was a prank, until she saw the HOA's logo, smug as a tax collector's grin. The paper flapped in the Texas wind, accusing her of violating aesthetic covenants and demanding she sell her family's 50-acre ranch or face foreclosure. Martha, with her arthritis-gnarled hands and a heart tougher than mesquite, stood there in the dust, staring at the words. Sell? This wasn't just land. It was where she'd raised her son, buried her husband, and outlasted droughts, storms, and bankers. Now, some clipboard-wielding busybodies from the neighboring gated community thought they could bully her out. She snorted, half-laugh, half-curse, and ripped the notice down. But the weight of it lingered like a bruise. The ranch, tucked in the rolling hills outside Austin, wasn't much to look at anymore. The barn's red paint flaked like old scabs, the fences sagged under decades of neglect, and Martha's 6 goats, named after her favorite country singers, wandered wherever they pleased. To her, it was home. To the Sunny Acres Homeowners Association, it was an eyesore, a blight on their manicured lawns and McMansions with fake shutters. The HOA's president, Karen Whitaker, had been circling like a vulture for months, sending fines for unsightly livestock, $200 a pop, and non-compliant fencing, $150 more. Martha paid what she could, dipping into her Social Security, but the notices kept coming, each one sharper than the last. The latest, though, wasn't a fine. It was a death sentence for the Grayson legacy, citing some obscure 1990s land survey that claimed her ranch fell under their jurisdiction. Sell by month's end, or they'd drag her to court. Martha wasn't one to cry. She'd outlived 2 wars, a recession, and her husband's heart attack. But at 93, with her knees creaking and her eyesight fading, the fight felt heavier. She shuffled back to the ranch house, a squat limestone building with a tin roof that rattled in storms. Inside, the air smelled of coffee and old leather. She sank into her recliner, the one her late husband, Tom, used to hog, and stared at the phone. Her fingers trembled, not from age, but from pride. She hadn't called her son, Jack, in years. Not since their fight after Tom's funeral, when Jack stormed off, vowing never to touch the ranch again. But pride wouldn't save her now. She dialed his number, half hoping it wouldn't connect. In a Montana cabin 1,500 miles away, Jack Grayson answered on the 3rd ring. At 48, he was a man carved from granite, broad shoulders, scarred knuckles, and eyes that didn't trust easy. A retired Navy SEAL, he'd spent 2 decades dodging bullets in deserts and jungles, only to retreat to the woods, living off venison and silence. The ranch was a ghost he'd buried, along with his father's voice calling him a quitter for enlisting instead of staying to work the land. When Martha's voice crackled through the line, soft but urgent, something in Jack snapped awake. "I need you, son," she said, no details, just that old steel he remembered. He didn't ask questions. He grabbed his duffel, tossed in a K-bar knife and a worn photo of his parents, and fired up his truck. Texas was a long drive, but trouble didn't wait. Back at the ranch, Martha wasn't idle. She dug through a cedar chest, pulling out yellowed deeds and tax records, her bifocals slipping down her nose. The HOA's claim stank worse than a feedlot in July. She'd never signed over a speck of her land, and Tom would have burned the house down before letting some suit redraw their boundaries. But the documents were a maze, legal jargon about easements and covenants, words meant to trip up old widows. She found one page, a 1995 survey, with a line that made her blood run cold. A handwritten note tying her property to Sunny Acres oversight. It didn't look right, but she wasn't a lawyer. She was a rancher's wife, and ranchers didn't beg. The next morning, Karen Whitaker herself rolled up in a gleaming SUV, her perm as tight as her smile, flanked by a weaselly man in a cheap suit, Leonard Fisk, the HOA's lawyer. She handed Martha a new notice, this one threatening a lien on her bank account. "We're trying to help, Mrs. Grayson," Karen purred, her voice dripping with the kind of pity that hides a knife. "This ranch is a liability. Let us take it off your hands." Martha gripped her cane, tempted to swing it. Instead, she spat. "My goats have more manners than you." Karen's smile didn't crack, but her eyes narrowed. Leonard muttered about escalating measures. And they left, tires crunching gravel like a warning. Here's where I need your help. Folks, have you ever dealt with an HOA that acted like they owned your soul? Drop your worst HOA horror story in the comments below. I'll read every one. We've all been pushed around by some petty tyrant with a rulebook, haven't we? Martha sure has. And it's only getting worse. See, Karen wasn't just after Martha's land. Sunny Acres was expanding, swallowing up every scrap of dirt for their cookie-cutter paradise. The ranch was the last holdout, a stubborn middle finger to their vision of cul-de-sacs and golf carts. Karen's letters got nastier, citing Texas property codes. Chapter 204, if you're curious, that gave HOAs teeth to enforce community standards. Martha's goats weren't just pets. They were livestock violations. Her barn wasn't rustic. It was a structural hazard. The fines hit $5,000, more than Martha's savings. She stopped sleeping, her cough worsening with every new envelope in her mailbox. Jack's truck ate up the miles, crossing state lines under a sky bruised with clouds. He didn't know the details yet, just that his mother sounded scared, and that wasn't a word he'd ever tied to her. His mind churned, pulling up memories he'd tried to drown. The ranch wasn't just dirt and goats. It was his father's calloused hands, his mother's Sunday pies, and a fight that had left him a stranger to his own blood. He'd been a SEAL, trained to face death, but facing Martha meant facing himself. His grip tightened on the wheel as he passed a sign, "Welcome to Texas." Martha, meanwhile, taped the torn eviction notice to her fridge, a reminder to keep fighting. She fed her goats, Merle, Dolly, and the rest, whispering, "They ain't taking you," but her heart fluttered, a secret she'd kept even from Jack. Her doctor had warned her about stress, about a ticker that couldn't take much more. She didn't tell Jack that on the phone, didn't tell him about the pills she couldn't afford. All she said was, "Come home." And now, as the sun dipped low, painting the ranch gold, she prayed he'd make it before Karen's vultures closed in. The road stretched ahead for Jack, dust swirling behind his truck like ghosts chasing him back to Texas. Whatever was waiting at the ranch, he'd face it head-on, because nobody messed with Martha Grayson. Not on his watch. Jack Grayson hadn't set foot on the ranch since his dad's funeral. Now, he was walking into a war zone with no intel. His truck rattled to a stop at the gate, kicking up Texas dust that stung his eyes like a memory. The ranch sprawled before him, 50 acres of stubborn earth, but it looked smaller than he remembered. Tired, like it had aged alongside his mother. The barn leaned like a drunk, the fences sagged, and one of Martha's goats, Dolly, judging by the crooked ear, chewed a weed with zero urgency. Jack's boots crunched gravel as he slung his duffel over his shoulder, steeling himself. He'd faced insurgents in Fallujah, but seeing Martha again, after 15 years of silence, felt like breaching a door with no backup. Inside the ranch house, Martha was waiting. She stood by the stove, stirring coffee that smelled like home, her frame frilier than Jack's memory, but her eyes still sharp as a hawk's. "Took you long enough," she said. No hug, just a nod that carried a lifetime of unspoken words. Jack dropped his bag, catching the faint tremble in her hands. Arthritis, maybe, or something worse, she wasn't saying. The kitchen table was buried under papers. HOA notices, fines, and that neon yellow eviction threat, now creased like it had been read 100 times. Martha didn't sugarcoat it. "They want the land, Jack. Say it's theirs by some old survey. I ain't selling, but they're coming hard." Jack's jaw tightened as Martha laid it out. The Sunny Acres HOA, led by Karen Whitaker, described by Martha as a perm with a power trip, had been hammering her for months. Their latest move was a legal sledgehammer, a claim that a 1990s land deal put the ranch under their control, backed by a shark named Leonard Fisk, their lawyer. Fines for aesthetic violations, goats, barn, even Martha's wildflower patch, had hit $5,000, with a court date looming in 30 days to force a sale. Jack flipped through the notices, his SEAL training kicking in, scan, assess, plan. The papers were thick with Texas Property Code citations. Chapter 209, Compliance Enforcement, but something felt off. The survey signature, supposedly Tom Grayson's, didn't match the scrawl Jack remembered from his dad's old ledgers. He didn't say it aloud, but Jack smelled a scam, the kind of greasy hustle he'd sniffed out in war zones. "Who's this Karen?" he asked, voice low. Martha snorted. "Thinks she's queen of the county. Lives in a house with more columns than sense." Jack's lips twitched a rare half-smile. Martha hadn't lost her edge. But when she turned to pour coffee, he saw her wince, clutching the counter. "You okay?" he asked. "Fine," she snapped, too quick. Jack didn't push, but the knot in his gut tightened. He'd been gone too long to play doctor now. That night, Jack couldn't sleep. The guest room smelled of dust and regret, with a photo of him and his dad, Tom, all stern jaw and Stetson, staring from the nightstand. Jack was 18 in the picture, the day he'd told Tom he was enlisting. "You're abandoning us?" Tom had growled. And those words had festered, driving Jack to Montana after the funeral. Now, lying in the dark, he heard his dad's voice again, mixed with Martha's cough echoing down the hall. He'd failed them once. Not again. Next morning, Jack went recon. He drove to Sunny Acres, a gated sprawl of beige houses and lawns so perfect they looked plastic. The HOA's clubhouse was hosting a meeting, and Jack slipped in, blending like he'd learned in covert ops. Karen Whitaker held court, a clipboard in one hand and a latte in the other, her voice grating like a bad drill sergeant. "The Grayson property is dragging us down," she declared to a room of nodding neighbors. "We're civilizing this area. Property values depend on it." Jack's fists clenched when she called Martha's goats an affront to decency. He caught a glimpse of Leonard Fisk, all slick hair and shifty eyes, whispering to Karen. The guy screamed dirty money. Jack didn't stay long, just enough to grab a copy of the HOA bylaws from a table. Back at the ranch, he spread them out, decoding the legalese like it was enemy code. The bylaws were airtight, citing Texas statutes giving HOAs power to maintain community standards. But the survey tying the ranch to Sunny Acres? Fishy. The signature was too clean, like it had been traced. Jack's gut said forgery, but he needed proof. He started digging through Martha's cedar chest, finding Tom's old deeds. None mentioned Sunny Acres. By dusk, he'd confirmed one thing. Karen and Leonard were banking on Martha folding before anyone checked their math. The deeper Jack dug, the uglier it got. A neighbor, old Hank from down the road, swung by with gossip. Sunny Acres was pushing a developer deal, whispering about turning the ranch into a golf course. Hank, a Vietnam vet with a limp and a grudge against yuppies, spat in the dirt. "They're greasing palms, Jack. Bet Karen's got a cut." Jack nodded, filing it away. Hank's tip gave him a target, but the clock was ticking. Martha's fines were climbing, and her cough was worse. Over dinner, she tried to hide it, joking about naming a new goat after Karen. Jack played along, but when she dropped a plate and cursed her damn hands, he saw the fear in her eyes. Not for herself, for the ranch. That fear hit Jack like a flashbang. He'd seen Martha stare down bankers and blizzards, but now she looked small, worn by time and vultures like Karen. He stepped outside, the Texas stars mocking him with their quiet. His mind flashed to Afghanistan, a mission where he'd lost a man because he hesitated. The guilt had followed him to Montana, to this moment. He wasn't hesitating now. Martha hadn't raised a quitter, and neither had Tom, whatever their fights. Jack's fingers brushed the photo in his pocket. His parents, younger, prouder. He'd left them once. This time he'd fight. Back inside, Martha was asleep in her recliner, a quilt over her knees. Jack covered her with another blanket, then sat at the table, the HOA papers glowing under a lamp. He cracked his knuckles, seal instincts humming. Karen wanted a war? Fine. He'd start by tearing her castle apart. Quietly, like he'd been trained. Step 1. Find that survey's origin. Step 2. Expose Leonard's game. Step 3. He grinned, imagining Karen's perm wilting when he flipped the board. This wasn't just about saving the ranch. It was about reminding these paper pushers who they were messing with. As dawn broke, Jack was already moving, his truck loaded with Tom's old files and a plan. Martha didn't know it yet, but her prodigal son was back, and he was bringing hell with him. The HOA didn't know Jack was a SEAL, but they were about to learn what happens when you corner a Grayson. Jack stood at the ranch gate, squinting into the Texas sun as a pickup rolled up, kicking dust like a cheap threat. Inside was a surveyor, some kid with a clipboard and nervous eyes, flanked by a deputy who looked too cozy with the HOA's lawyer, Leonard Fisk. They were here to inspect the ranch, claiming Martha's barn was a public hazard. Jack's gut screamed ambush. He'd seen setups like this overseas: smile, shake hands, then slide the knife. He crossed his arms, boots planted, and gave them a stare that had made insurgents sweat. "You got a warrant?" he asked, voice like gravel. The deputy mumbled about county orders, but the surveyor bolted back to the truck. Jack didn't smile. Round one, his back inside. Martha was sorting HOA notices, her cough sharper than yesterday. She'd heard the truck and seen Jack's stunt. "You scaring him off won't stop him," she said, tossing him a coffee mug with a faded Longhorn logo. Jack sipped, tasting home and guilt. He'd been back 3 days, long enough to confirm the 1995 survey tying the ranch to Sunny Acres was shadier than a backroom poker game. The signature, supposedly his dad's, looked like it had been drawn by a toddler with a grudge. But proving it meant digging deeper, and the HOA wasn't waiting. Martha slid him a new letter, fresh from Karen Whitaker's printer. A cease and desist, accusing Jack of harassing their surveyor. "Harassment?" Jack snorted. "I didn't even raise my voice." Martha's lips twitched, but her eyes were tired. "They're scared of you, son. That's worse." Jack wasn't surprised when Karen struck back. By noon, word spread. Sunny Acres had filed a complaint with the sheriff, painting Jack as a disruptive element. Worse, Leonard Fisk was sniffing around county records, pushing the narrative that Martha's ranch was a blight, dragging down property values. Jack drove to the courthouse, blending into the crowd to overhear Leonard schmoozing a clerk about expedited foreclosure. The guy was slick, all smiles and cheap cologne, but Jack caught a name: Pinnacle Development. Hank's gossip about a golf course deal wasn't just talk. Leonard's laptop, left open at a diner, had emails mentioning a $2 million payout if the ranch sold. Jack didn't hack it yet, but he memorized the details, his SEAL brain filing them like ammo. The real gut punch came at dusk. Jack was fixing a fence, sweat soaking his shirt, when Martha called him in. Her voice was tight, not her usual fire. She held a photo, creased and yellowed. Her and Tom Young, laughing on the porch. "I didn't want you to know," she said, coughing hard. "Doctor says my heart's acting up. Stress don't help." Jack froze, hammer slipping from his hand. He'd seen her wince, heard the cough. But this? His mind flashed to Afghanistan. A buddy bleeding out because Jack couldn't move fast enough. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked, softer than he meant. Martha shrugged. "Didn't want you staying out of pity." Her pride was a blade, cutting them both. That night, Jack's demons came knocking. He sat on the porch, stars glaring down, replaying his last fight with Tom. "You're no son of mine." His dad had spat when Jack chose the Navy over the ranch. The words had burned, pushing Jack to prove himself. Medals, missions, scars, but they'd also left a hole. Now Martha was slipping, and the HOA was circling like coyotes. Sleep didn't come. Instead, he planned. Karen's HOA was a machine, but machines had weak points. He'd hit theirs quietly for now. Next day, Jack went guerrilla. He slipped into Sunny Acres' next meeting, posing as a curious buyer. Karen was in rare form, railing about preserving our community's integrity, while dodging questions about Pinnacle. Jack planted a seed, accidentally dropping a fake HOA violation notice he'd mocked up. Same font, same logo, but it flagged Karen's own house for non-compliant mailbox height. By evening, Sunny Acres' online forum was buzzing, neighbors sniping at Karen's hypocrisy. Jack didn't laugh, but he felt the rush. like rigging a tripwire for the enemy. The victory was short. Karen, smelling trouble, doubled down. A new notice arrived, hand-delivered by Leonard, who smirked like he'd already won. The HOA was now claiming eminent domain powers, citing a Texas statute, property code 204.004, to seize the ranch for community benefit. The fine print mentioned Pinnacle, veiled as a public project. Jack read it twice, blood pounding. This wasn't just greed, it was theft dressed in legalese. He called Hank, who growled, "They've got the county in their pocket. Seen it before." Hank's war stories weren't just talk. He'd fought developers in the 80s and lost half his land. Jack listened, filing every detail. Martha wasn't quitting either. She baked cornbread, muttering about feeding the goats before Karen makes them into purses. But Jack caught her staring at Tom's old hat, hanging by the door. "He'd be proud of you," she said, voice soft. Jack didn't reply, couldn't. Pride wasn't enough if he lost her. His recon had turned up dirt. Leonard's emails tied Karen to a shady LLC, likely a front for Pinnacle's kickback. Jack needed hard proof, but his old SEAL contacts could help. Guys who owed him favors and knew how to crack digital locks. He sent a burner text to a buddy in Virginia, calling in a debt. The HOA's next move blindsided him. At dawn, a county health inspector showed up, citing livestock violations. Goats, again, and threatening to impound Dolly and the gang. Jack blocked the guy's truck, calm but cold, quoting Texas AG law, Agriculture Code 143.074, that protected Martha's animals. The inspector left, but not before muttering about escalation. Jack knew what that meant. Karen was done playing nice. She wanted blood. His mind churned, pulling up a memory. Kandahar, 2009, pinned down by snipers. He'd gotten his team out by thinking 3 steps ahead. Same deal here. Step 1, get those emails. Step 2, turn Sunny Acres against Karen. Step 3, hit Pinnacle where it hurt. He glanced at Martha, dozing by the radio, Willie Nelson crackling through. She'd hidden her heart condition to keep him free, but freedom wasn't worth this. The ranch was her life and Jack was her son, screw-ups and all. As he loaded Tom's old files into his truck, a new letter slid under the door. A lawsuit, stamped with Leonard's name, accusing Jack of slander and obstruction. Court was in 3 weeks and the fines were now $10,000. Jack crumpled it, grinning like a wolf. Karen thought she'd backed him into a corner. She didn't know corners were where he thrived. When the sheriff showed up with a bulldozer, Jack realized this wasn't just a fight. It was a siege. The machine's growl woke the ranch at dawn, its steel blade glinting like a guillotine in the Texas sun. Sheriff's deputies flanked it, radios crackling, while Karen Whitaker stood smug 93-year-old Martha Grayson's ranch, claiming her barn was structurally unsound and slated for demolition. Jack was already at the gate, his SEAL instincts screaming trap. He'd seen ambushes in Fallujah, this was no different, just with better landscaping. Karen's smug grin, peeking from her SUV parked across the road, confirmed it. She'd gone nuclear and Jack's blood boiled. Nobody touched his mother's home. Not today. The night before, Jack had barely slept. His burner phone pinged with a message from his Virginia contact. Leonard Fisk's emails were real, linking Karen to a $2 million kickback from Pinnacle Development for the ranch's sale. The proof was coming, but not fast enough. Martha's cough had worsened, her pill bottle near empty. She'd been skipping doses to stretch them, hiding it from Jack until he caught her wincing over breakfast. "Don't you dare bury me yet," she'd snapped, but her eyes betrayed fear. The HOA's latest stunt, a lien on her bank account, $12,000 now, citing delinquent fines, had frozen her funds. No medicine, no groceries, just a court date in 2 weeks and Karen's vultures circling. Jack had sworn to end this, but now the bulldozer was here, and he was out of time. Jack rallied what he had. He called Hank, the Vietnam vet neighbor, who limped over with a shotgun and a grin like he'd been waiting for this since Nam. 2 other locals, Rusty, a mechanic with a beef against Sunny Acres, and Clara, a widow who'd lost land to developers, joined up, hauling hay bales to block the gate. Jack rigged a tractor to stall the bulldozer's path, its engine coughing like Martha. "This is our Alamo," Hank cackled, tying a bandana around his head. Jack didn't laugh. He saw Karen filming from her SUV, her phone out like a war correspondent for HOA propaganda. She'd post it online, spinning Jack as a lunatic squatter. Smart move, he admitted. Public opinion was her weapon. Too bad he was about to turn it. The deputies advanced, one barking through a megaphone. "Clear the premises. County Ordinance 47.2. Unsafe structure." Jack stepped forward, voice steady, quoting Texas law back, Property Code 92.0081. "You need a court order for demolition. Show it." The deputy blinked, caught off guard. No order existed. Jack had checked county records yesterday. The bulldozer idled, but Karen wasn't done. She strode over, heels sinking in the dirt, and handed the sheriff a nuisance abatement notice, claiming Martha's goats were a health risk. "Seize them," she said, loud enough for Martha to hear from the porch. Dolly bleated, sensing trouble. Martha gripped her cane, shouting, "You touch my goats, I'll tan your hide." Jack caught her arm, feeling her tremble. Not anger, but exhaustion. That's when Jack's PTSD kicked in. The diesel fumes, the shouting. It yanked him back to a desert checkpoint, screams in the dark, a mission where he'd frozen, costing a friend's life. His vision blurred, pulse hammering. Then Martha squeezed his hand, grounding him. "You're here now," she whispered. He nodded, shoving the memory down. This wasn't Afghanistan. This was his mother's land, and he'd die before Karen touched it. He signaled Hank, who, God bless him, cranked a jury-rigged sprinkler, dousing Karen's phone and perm in a glorious arc of water. Her shriek was operatic, pure Saturday morning cartoon villain. The deputies hesitated, some smirking. "Round 2, Jacks." But Karen was a hydra, cut one head, 2 grew back. By noon, she'd spun the standoff on Sunny Acres Forum, posting a grainy video titled, "Ranch Menace Threatens Community." Comments piled up. Neighbors Jack didn't know calling Martha a hoarder, him a drifter. Worse, Leonard Fisk filed an emergency injunction, claiming Jack's blockade violated HOA bylaws. Section 3.1, obstructing access. The lien on Martha's account tightened. She couldn't even buy feed for the goats. Jack's email proof was still days away, stuck in his contacts queue. He needed to flip the script now, or Karen's PR would bury them before court. Jack went rogue. He'd saved the fake violation notice trick from last week, but this time he scaled up. Using Martha's ancient printer, he churned out flyers, official-looking, with Sunny Acres logo, accusing Karen of financial misconduct and secret developer deals. No hard proof yet, just enough truth to sting. He and Rusty slipped into Sunny Acres at dusk, stuffing mailboxes under cover of a dog walker's yapping. By morning, the forum was a dumpster fire. "Is Karen selling us out? Why's Pinnacle's name on this?" Jack watched from the ranch, sipping coffee, as Karen's own neighbors turned. Satirical gold. Her next HOA meeting had folks waving his flyers like pitchforks, demanding audits. She blamed vandals, but her voice cracked. Blood in the water. The high didn't last. That afternoon, a social worker knocked, sent by the county to check on Martha's welfare. Karen's doing, no doubt. Her video had painted Martha as unfit, living in squalor. The worker, a kind-eyed woman, saw through it after 5 minutes with Martha's cornbread and sharp tongue. "You're saner than most," she said, leaving. But the message was clear. Karen was hitting below the belt, aiming to break Martha's spirit. Jack found his mother staring at Tom's old hat, tears she didn't hide. "I can't lose this place, Jack," she said. "It's all I got left of him." His throat burned. He'd left her to carry this alone. 15 years, chasing medals while she fought for their roots. No more. Jack's Virginia contact finally delivered. A screenshot of Leonard's email, naming Karen's LLC and Pinnacle's payout. It wasn't the full file, but it was enough to leak. Jack sent it to a local blogger, Travis County Truth, who'd been itching to skewer Sunny Acres. The post dropped that night, headlined, HOA Queen's Cash Grab. It spread like wildfire. Retweets, X-posts, even a radio DJ cackling about Karen's golf course grift. Jack watched Martha read it, her laugh weak but real. "Your trouble, son," she said. He grinned, first time all week. The HOA didn't flinch. At midnight, a tow truck rolled up, county plates, aiming to haul the tractor Jack had used as a barricade. Jack was ready, keys hidden, tires slashed, non-violently, SEAL style. The driver cursed and left, but Jack knew this was a warning. Karen was desperate, and desperate meant dangerous. He sat on the porch, K-bar knife in hand, stars cold overhead. His mind flicked to his dad, to missions gone wrong, to Martha's pill bottle. The ranch wasn't just dirt. It was redemption, and he'd burn it down himself before letting Karen win. Dawn brought a new blow. A certified letter slipped under the door. The county, egged on by Leonard, had fast-tracked a hearing 5 days away to resolve the ranch's status. Tucked inside was a single line, handwritten, no signature, "Back off or she pays." Jack's fist clenched, crumpling it. Karen thought she'd scare him? She'd just lit a fuse. Jack had 24 hours to save the ranch, or watch it become a putting green for Karen's cronies. The county courthouse loomed like a fortress under the Texas sun, its limestone walls mocking Jack as he parked his truck, dust still clinging to his boots. Inside was his last shot. A hearing to decide if the Sunny Acres HOA could seize Martha's 50-acre ranch under their eminent domain claim. Jack clutched a manila folder. His ace, pieced together from late-night digs and a SEAL's stubbornness. It held the 1940s deed clause he'd found in Tom's old files, declaring the ranch a heritage site, exempt from HOA control. But Karen Whitaker and her lawyer, Leonard Fisk, weren't coming to play fair. Jack felt the weight of Martha's cough, her empty pill bottle, and 15 years of guilt riding on this. Failure wasn't an option. The fight had hit fever pitch. After the bulldozer standoff, Jack's leaked email screenshot, tying Karen to Pinnacle Development's $2 million kickback, had blown up online thanks to the Travis County Truth blogger. X-posts and radio rants called Karen Golf Course Karen. And Sunny Acres Forum was a war zone, with neighbors demanding her head. But Karen was a cockroach, surviving, scheming. She'd fast-tracked this hearing, pulling strings with a county judge who golfed with Leonard. The handwritten threat Jack found last night, "Back off or she pays," still burned in his mind. Martha, frail but fierce, had stayed home, feeding her goats and muttering about tanning Karen's hide. Jack wished he had her fire now. His hands shook, not from fear, but from rage. He'd faced death overseas. This was personal. Inside the courtroom, the air was stale, heavy with bureaucracy. Jack, in a borrowed jacket 2 sizes too tight, sat alone. No lawyer, just grit. Karen strutted in, perm pristine, with Leonard in a suit that screamed, "I bill by the syllable." The judge, a gray-haired good OL boy named Hargrove, eyed Jack like he was a stray dog. Leonard opened, spinning a tale of Martha's neglected ranch dragging down Sunny Acres property values. He flashed the 1995 survey, its forged signature still unproven, claiming the ranch was HOA turf. Karen played victim, dabbing fake tears as she called Jack a violent drifter who'd terrorized her community. The room ate it up, whispers rippling. Jack's jaw clenched. He wasn't trained for this battlefield, but he'd adapt. Then Leonard dropped a bomb. An emergency injunction to freeze the hearing and evict Martha within 48 hours, citing public safety. Those damn goats again. Jack shot up, ignoring Hargrove's gavel. "That's a lie," he barked, voice cutting through the room. "They're stealing her land for a developer payoff." Hargrove warned him to sit, but Jack caught a flicker. Karen's smirk faltered. He was getting under her skin. He slid his folder to the clerk, demanding they read the heritage clause. Leonard scoffed, calling it outdated, but Jack quoted Texas law, Government Code 442.001, historic preservation, like a rifle shot. Heritage sites are untouchable by HOAs. The clerk hesitated, passing it to Hargrove, who squinted at the faded deed. Karen wasn't done. She'd brought witnesses, Sunny Acres neighbors, coached to whine about goat smells and rusty fences. One, a nervous guy named Greg, crumbled when Jack stared him down, mumbling, "Karen told me to say it." The room stirred, Hargrove's frown deepening. Jack seized the moment, holding up the blogger's post, now printed, with Leonard's email screenshot. "This proves they're profiting," he said, voice steady. "Pinnacle's paying them to flip the ranch into a golf course." Leonard objected, calling it slander. But Hargrove let Jack talk. Years of briefing commanders kicked in. Jack laid out the LLC, the kickback, and Karen's lies, each word a jab. Then came the twist. Hank, the Vietnam vet, limped in, unannounced, with a county archive box. Jack hadn't expected him. He told Hank to stay with Martha. "Found this last night," Hank growled, sliding Hargrove a 1947 ledger proving the Grayson Ranch was a World War II supply depot, cementing its heritage status. HOA's got no claim. The room went dead quiet. Karen's face drained, her perm practically wilting. Leonard stammered, but Hargrove wasn't buying it. He banged the gavel, ordering a recess to review the ledger. Jack exhaled, feeling Martha's hand from yesterday, grounding him through the haze of PTSD that had threatened to spike. Outside, the blogger's post hit critical mass. X was ablaze, #SaveGraysonRanch trending, locals picketing Sunny Acres gate. Pinnacle, smelling disaster, issued a statement. They were reassessing the deal. Karen's empire was cracking, but she cornered Jack in the hall, hissing, "You'll regret this." Jack leaned in, voice low. "Lady, I've regretted worse and lived." Her flinch was sweeter than whiskey. Back in court, Hargrove ruled. The heritage clause held. The HOA's claim was void, the survey inconclusive. He fined Karen $10,000 for frivolous litigation, citing Texas Property Code 202.004. Leonard's jaw dropped. Karen looked like she'd swallowed a cactus. The final nail came that night. Sunny Acres held an emergency board election. Karen was ousted, 87 votes to 3, replaced by Greg, the nervous guy who'd cracked. Jack heard it from Hank, who cackled, "She's packing for Florida. Gators'll love her." Martha, hearing the news, laughed till she coughed, then hugged Jack, her grip weak but real. "You're your father's son," she said. Jack's throat tightened. He'd run from that truth too long. Later, alone, he scattered Tom's ashes by the barn, whispering, "I got it from here." The guilt didn't vanish, but it loosened, like a knot finally cut. The ranch wasn't safe yet. Legal fees loomed, and Martha's health was a ticking clock. But Jack had bought them time, maybe more. He wasn't the kid who'd fled, nor the seal who'd hid. He was home. Karen's defeat was a middle finger to every petty tyrant who'd ever kicked a man's castle. And Jack savored it, imagining her golf cart idling in defeat. Hey folks, if you loved seeing Jack stick it to the HOA, smash that like button, share this story with your buddies, drop a comment about your own revenge wins, and hit subscribe. Don't forget the bell so you never miss a fight like this. Let's keep these battles coming. Jack drove back to the ranch as dusk fell, the folder lighter in his hands. Martha was on the porch, Dolly nibbling her shawl. "You're late," she teased, voice stronger. Jack grinned, spotting a new goat, smaller, scrappy. "Named her Karen," Martha said, winking. He laughed, the sound foreign but right. The fight wasn't over, but the ranch was theirs, and so was the future. For now, that was enough. The Texas sun hung low, painting Martha's ranch in gold, as if the land itself was exhaling after a long fight. 6 months had passed since Jack Grayson faced down the Sunny Acres HOA in court, saving the 50-acre spread from Karen Whitaker's golf course greed. The barn stood proud, its fresh red paint gleaming, no longer a hazard, but a beacon. Fences were mended, goats roamed, Dolly, Merle, and the scrappy new Karen, leading the pack, and wildflowers bloomed where stress once choked the soil. Jack leaned on a post, watching Martha toss feed to her herd, her cough softer now, her laugh louder. The ranch wasn't just saved. It was alive, and so were they. Life after the showdown felt like waking from a fever dream. The county's ruling, cementing the ranch as a heritage site under Texas Government Code 442.001, had slammed the door on HOA claims. Karen's $10,000 fine for frivolous litigation was pocket change compared to her real loss. Sunny Acres voted her out, 87-3, her perm and power trip exiled to Florida. Hank, the Vietnam vet, cackled over beers. Bet she's yelling at alligators now, demanding they mow their swamps. Jack grinned, picturing Karen's golf cart sinking in a bog. Leonard Fisk vanished too. His shady LLC dissolved when Pinnacle Development bailed, spooked by the hashtag Save Grayson Ranch firestorm. The blogger's post had hit 200,000 views. X still buzzing with memes of golf course Karen. Justice tasted better than Martha's cornbread, and that was saying something. The ranch became a hub, not just a holdout. Martha, 93 and stubborn as mesquite, turned the front pasture into a community garden. Locals pitching in with tomatoes and squash. Clara, the widow who'd backed Jack during the siege, ran it, her laugh a middle finger to her own developer scars. Rusty, the mechanic, fixed irrigation lines, muttering about no HOAs telling my carrots how to grow. Even Sunny Acres folks showed up, shamefaced but willing, after electing Greg, the nervous guy who'd cracked in court, as their new president. Greg's first act? Scrapping half the bylaws, citing Texas Property Code 202.001 for transparency. Jack didn't trust them fully, seal habits died hard, but he nodded when they brought seedlings. Progress, not perfection. Martha's health was the real win. The lien lifted, her bank account breathed again, and a new doctor, paid partly with goat milk because Texas, got her heart meds balanced. She still winced climbing stairs, but her fire was back. One morning, she roped Jack into a scheme, goat yoga, a jab at Sunny Acres' snooty trends. Locals paid $10 to stretch with Dolly nibbling their socks, half the cash going to a veterans fund. Hank led sessions, bandana on, calling it PT for hippies. Jack watched from the sidelines, shaking his head as Martha counted bills, muttering, Karen stroke out seeing this. The Austin Chronicle ran a story, Ranch defies HOA, finds Zen, and Martha framed it, right next to Tom's old hat. Jack had changed too. He'd stayed, not just for Martha but for himself. The ranch wasn't the cage he'd fled at 18. When Tom's "You're no son" cut deep, it was roots hard-earned. He started teaching local kids, troubled ones, like he'd been survival skills. Knot tying, fire starting, tracking. Keeps him out of jail, he told Hank. But it was more. Passing on what the Navy gave him minus the scars. His PTSD lingered, a shadow that spiked at loud engines. But Martha's hand on his shoulder, her quiet "you're enough," dulled its edge. He wasn't fixed, but he was home. The final twist came late one evening. Jack was cleaning the barn, radio humming Willie Nelson, when he found a locked box under Tom's old workbench. Inside was a journal, leather cracked, pages brittle. Tom's handwriting filled it. Not ledgers, but letters never sent. One, dated a month before his death, hit like a gut punch. Jack, I was wrong. You're a better man than I ever was. This ranch ain't my dream. It's yours, if you want it. Proud of you, son. Jack sat, dust settling, throat tight. Tom hadn't hated him. He'd loved him, clumsy and proud, like fathers do. Jack read it twice, then tucked the journal away, a weight lifting he hadn't named. Martha caught him later, eyes knowing. Found his words, huh? She said, no question mark. Jack nodded, unable to speak. She hugged him, small but fierce, and for the first time in years, he didn't pull away. The ranch had held their ghosts. Tom's anger, Jack's guilt, and now it held their peace. They stood on the porch, stars brighter than city lights, Dolly bleeding like she approved. Gonna stay? Martha asked, sly. Jack smirked. Try getting rid of me. Her laugh was worth every mile he'd driven. The county wasn't done changing. Hank, of all people, pushed a new ordinance, Bill 25.3, passed last month. capping HOA fines at $500 and requiring public audits. He called it the Grayson Rule. Winking at Jack, Sunny Acres, humbled, planted a live and let live sign. A dig at Karen's reign. Jack didn't care for signs, but he liked the quiet. No more neon yellow notices. No more liens. He and Rusty rebuilt the gate, stronger, with a lock Karen'd never crack. The goats naturally ignored it. Community quirks kept things lively. Hank started a ranch militia. Less guns, more beer. Swearing to defend the goats. Clara's garden won a county fair ribbon, though she grumbled when a judge called it rustic. Greg, the new HOA head, sent Martha a fruit basket, which she fed to the goats, saying, "They're sorry, but they ain't that sorry." Jack laughed, fixing a tractor, his hands steady. The ranch wasn't just surviving, it was teaching him how to live. One sunset, Jack and Martha sat out front, her rocking chair creaking, his boots propped on a crate. A kid from his class, 16, all attitude, had shown up earlier, learning to track deer. Jack saw himself in the boy, lost but reachable. "You're good at this," Martha said, nodding at the horizon. "Fixing things." Jack shrugged, but her words stuck. The ranch was theirs, not just dirt but a promise, to Tom, to her, to himself. He'd keep it, scars and all. As the sky burned red, Jack thought of Karen, probably screaming at a condo board somewhere. He hoped she'd learned. Mess with a Grayson, you lose. The ranch stood, reborn, a middle finger to every suit who tried to break it. And Jack? He was staying for good.